Namaste, I am Dimple, the Director of Academic Programs at INDICA, and I welcome you all to the latest session of our overview webinar series. At INDICA, we strive to create and curate offerings that delve into various aspects of Indian knowledge systems or IKS in pursuance of our mission of sharing the transformative power of timeless indigenous wisdom with lifelong learners. I as always, encourage you to visit our website, INDICA.courses, and feel free to enroll, gift, or recommend our offerings. You could also visit our parent website, INDICA.in, to check out what all do we do in terms of IKS. This particular overview webinar series is a sort of a program or platform that we have created so that you can get a detailed understanding of any of our upcoming course and thereby make an informed enrollment decision. This is just a sneak peek of what is to ensue in the course per se. So please do not expect us to share everything about the course today, but just give you an overview about what is to be expected in the course. So today's webinar in particular is focused on our upcoming INDICA course, Puranas, Vedic Principles Unveiled, that invites you to explore the ancient wisdom of the Puranas, foundational texts of Indian traditions alongside the Vedas and the Itihasas. This INDICA course connects Puranic and Vedic principles, delving into the four Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, and their role in Dharmic lifestyle. Through the Bhagavata Mahapurana, you will uncover topics such as cosmology, genealogy, legends, and philosophy, demonstrating the depth of the Puranas beyond mere myths. The course begins on the 3rd of September 2024 with live sessions every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. IST. We are so fortunate to have our distinguished faculty, Ms. Maitri Goswami ji, here today, who will take you through the course details in a bit. But before I hand over to her, let me provide a brief introduction of Maitri ji. Maitri ji के बारे में जो भी कहे कम है, but here's still a brief introduction. Maitri ji is a Vaishnavite by faith and a learner of Vedanta, Bharatiya culture, and Sanskrit scriptures. She has pursued MA from Sampurnanand Vishwavidyalaya, Varanasi, with Vedanta as the main subject. As a 17th descendant of Mahaprabhu Sri Vallabhacharya, she has been studying all the Sampradayik scriptures of Pushti Bhakti Marg, sect from her father, Sri Sharad Goswami, and her revered Guru Goswami, Sri Sham Manoharji, for the last 14 years. In addition to Sampradayik scripture, she has studied Sanskrit Vyakaran, Nyaya, Sankhya Shastra, and philosophies of Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya as a part of comparative studies. In accordance with her duties towards her Sampradaya, she currently preaches the scriptures written by Mahaprabhu Sri Vallabhacharya in Vedic philosophy. She is working with her father at Sri Vallabhacharya Vidyapith, established in Gujarat, for publishing, preserving, and teaching the Vedic scriptures and granthas written by the respected acharyas of the Sampradaya. She also teaches Vallabha Vedanta in a diploma course run by the Department of Philosophy, University of Mumbai. Maitri ji, welcome to this session, and I now invite you to give us an overview of this course. Over to you, Maitri ji.
So, to begin with, as said by Dimple ji, that we are providing an overview of the course, which is going to start from the upcoming week, which is on the topic of Puran, which have been a very important text within the scriptures, considered as the Shastras, explaining the principles for Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha, the four Purusharthas to be attained. As explained by Dimpalji, that this is just an overview session, so I am not going to explain everything about the Puranas today, but just about how the course will go, as explained in the schedule, that we are taking 15 classes, and during each hour of all the 15 classes, I would be going to discuss regarding the various aspects of the Puranas, for which the overview session is happening right now. As provided in the details for registration in the course, I'm trying to explain what is the objective behind this course, what will be the syllabus. Reading material will be provided to all the students who have registered for the course, and with reference to that, I will be discussing the aspects of Puranas which are supposed to be considered. The thought of considering this course with the INDICA courses came in my mind because we have people all around us who consider Puranas as mere mythological texts. So my biggest problem with translating Puranas as mythology is that they, whoever are the Western thinkers and writers and propagators, or I would say that those who have tried to kill the hardcore principles of Vedic tradition, Sanatan tradition. I don't want to go in the detail of all those things, but all of us as learners and researchers are aware about the fact that there are people who consider Puranas as mere mythological texts and consider that Vedas are the primary texts and all the others are just later on written texts which don't carry that much value as much as the Vedic texts, or they are not of that equivalent consideration, which on the ground of which we must feel that as important Vedas are, the same way Puran and other texts, Tantra Shastras or Smriti Shastras, are equally important for understanding the format of Dharma. So, considering that same notion, people have been promoting the Puranas as mythologies and consider them to be a mere myth, just like the fairy tales which were written for entertaining people. It means the way we write story tales right now, we write novels, we write storybooks, same way, like short stories and novels, Puranas were written by the Brahmins for entertaining the people, and there is no sort of any philosophical essence or any sort of dharmic essence which should be considered while reading or implementing the Puranic Dharma. So, being considerate with that same misinterpretation or the wrong notions prevailing within the society, within the researchers and people, because of the same thing, we have been considering this particular course. Sorry for the disturbance. Just give me a moment. Yeah. So, being considerate with the same thing, we need to discuss that what is the stand of Puranas within the Dharmic tradition and how important it is to understand that the Puranas are considered as equivalent to what the Vedic principles are, and they carry the same essence as the Vedic principles have been carried out. So the objective of this particular course is to first of all nullify the particular fact that Puranas are not mythological texts, and we should not promote this particular term for identifying the nature of Puranas, and they are not mere mythologies. So the first thing which we discussed is that we should not promote the term mythology for the Puranas, and the Puran term should be identified within the Shastric tradition the way it is, the way it has been identified till the date. So for establishing Puranas equivalent to what the Vedic principles are, we need to consider the comparative aspects of both the things. So the first thing, which as we were discussing, that we should not promote this particular term as the mythology, but Puranas should be written, spoken, and the term Puran should be coined whenever we are discussing about any of the Puranic aspect. So they are not the folklores, they are not the wrong narratives which have been written for entertaining people, but they consider and they are filled with all the essence which have been discussed in the Vedic principles. And for considering the same principle, we are trying to understand that how Vedic narratives and Vedic principles have been explained in the Puranic texts. So for that, the second objective which we are considering here is to understand the structure of the Puran and their theme. So what is the structure of Puran, how the Puranas have been written? That structure will be discussed during the course, and what is the overall theme for which that structure has been formed, that will be discussed. Thirdly, for understanding the applicability of Puranic Dharma along with the Vedic Dharma. So, as we all know that the four Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kam, and Moksha have been explained. Along with that, if we understand that Karma, Gyan, and Upasana, these are the three traditions as elaborated by the Vedic Shastras for the attainment of supreme reality. In that, the Upasana tradition has been elaborated as the fifth Purusharth, which is known as Bhakti Purusharth, which has clearly been elaborated in the Puranic texts. So, the Puranic texts are meant for explaining the form of the Devata, for explaining the format of the Bhakti Purusharth, how the Bhakti Purusharth needs to be implemented in the day-to-day life of a person, and how the Devatas deal with their devotees within the tradition of Bhakti. The fifth aspect is that the philosophical explanation which has been given in the Upanishad affiliates itself with the Purvakand of the Veda. So the Veda has been divided into two parts, which is the Purvakand and which is the Uttarakand. So the Purvakand comprises of the format of Karma Marga, and the Uttarakand comprises of the format of philosophy, which is the Uttarakand known as Upanishad. So the Upanishadic philosophy, the philosophical part, is meant for explaining the between the line things which have not been explained clearly in the Purvakand, in which just the actions have been explained. So, for example, there are two schools in which some people feel that only the Ved is meant only for explaining the karma, because ultimately our actions bear the fruit and there is nothing to do with the knowledge part. The second school goes with the part of Gyan, where it says that only karma is not important, karma is subordinate, while the Gyan aspect is primary. But as we all know that the Ved has been created comprising of Purvakand and Uttarakand both, which means that the Gyan Kand explains the reason behind the karma, and by keeping that Gyan in our mind, when a person indulges into the path of karma, only then the fruit is provided as a result of the action. So the way of Upanishadic philosophy is complementary to the Purvakand, same way that Upanishadic philosophy has been elaborated in the Puranas while a person is trying to worship the Devata through the Puranic Dharma. So only after understanding the Gyan portion of the Upanishads, we get involved into the karma. Otherwise, we have no answer to the question that why a person is involved in that particular action. Same way, without the knowledge, there is no answer to the question that why we are worshipping a particular deity. So that philosophical aspect of the Upanishad was again extended in the Puranas, and then by keeping each and every devata in the mind, being considerate with what the Upanishadic philosophy is, the Purana elucidate the format of philosophy. Then the sixth portion is that how the ritualistic aspect of the Ved comes in the Puranas. So the first thing is that the Karma Kand or the Purva Kand of the Ved, in which the Yagyas, the fire sacrifices, have been explained in the form of karma, it is also meant for worshipping a particular devata. So in each and every yagya, avahan of one particular devata is performed, and after inviting that devata for accepting the havish of the yagya karma, the yagya is also performed in the format of upasana only. So even the people who say that only the Sanatana Dharma has only promoted the format of karma, it has only promoted the format of yagya, and yagya dharma is what Sanatana Dharma is. But they don't understand that the yagya dharma is meant for upasana ultimately, and that same upasana is explained in the Puranas by providing it a new format, a new shape, a new thought. So that ritualistic aspect, as explained in the Vedic principles, needs to be understood whenever we are discussing that ritualistic aspect in the Puranas, by considering Purana as the extension of Vedic principles. The seventh consideration is that as the topic of Puran is very much elaborated, we have 18 Puranas and each and every Puran is very huge in its structure. So as it was not possible in this 15 classes or even in the 30 classes to discuss regarding all the Puranas in depth, that's why I thought of considering one particular Puran as an example by which we would be able to understand the structure of all the Puranas And with that comparative aspect, we would be able to understand that how all the other 17 Puranas have been explained. So considering that particular format, though I will be going through a brief introduction to all the 18 Puranas and the Mahapuran as well, but the Bhagavata Mahapurana will be considered as an example for understanding the structure of Puran and the theme of all the Puranas which have been elaborated. So that mythological text which have been identified by the West, considering that to be different from what the Vedic principles are, we would try to see the comparative aspects of principles and the elaborated aspect of principles which we are able to witness in the Puranas as the elaboration of Vedic principles itself. So that is the basic objective behind considering this course. The Puranas have been written within the structure of 10 dharma, which are explained as Sarga, Visarga, Sthan, Poshan, Uti, Manvantar, Ishanu Katha, Nirodh, Mukti, and Ashray. So these are the 10 actions of the Brahman which have been discussed in the Puran. So that is the structure of Puran in which each and every Puran has been written. So Puranas have on the basis of their depth and the length and the size of the Puran, they have been divided into two categories, which is Puran and the other one is Mahapuran. So in the Mahapuran, all the 10 actions starting from Sarga till the Ashray have been explained, while in the smaller Puranas, only the 5 actions have been explained, which start from Sarga, and the other have been considered as the subcategories of the major 5 categories. So that structure of Puran will be discussed, in which how each and every narrative relates or classifies itself within the 10 actions of Sarga till the Ashray. So that aspect will be discussed here, in which we would be trying to understand what is Sarga, what is Visarga, how the action of Ashray happens, how the action of Nirodh or Mukti happens, and how the narratives of Puran contribute in explaining that particular structure of that particular category. So Bhagavat will be considered as a model for studying the Puranas because it is a Mahapuran. So all the 10 actions starting from Sarga till the Ashray are visible in Bhagavat Mahapuran, and that's why it will be considered as a role model for understanding the format. So in-depth interrogation of Bhagavat Puran will be done as a crust of Vedic principles, through which we would be able to understand the overall structure of all the other Puran. The major commentaries on Bhagavat Mahapuran, I will be just providing an overview that who are the senior acharyas who have written extensive commentaries on Bhagavat Mahapuran, where they have tried to explain that these are not the mere narratives which have been written for entertaining the people, but they have been written for explaining the principles of Vedas in a very simplified way. So the misconception of considering that Brahmins wanted to earn their livelihood, and for earning their livelihood, they wrote all these narratives for promoting those within the lay people. For nullifying this particular thinking and the writings, we need to understand that the acharyas who have written the commentaries upon these Puranas, they have not considered their structure as mere narratives. So all the acharyas, we need to see that before us, there are learned people who have understood the structure of all the Dharmic Shastras in a very elucidated way. And that's why they are senior to us. So rather than picking up a book from the bookstore and going through just the translations, we come upon the conclusion that, okay, these are just the nonsense narratives and the folklores or the mythological writings which have no essence in them. Only the Vedic writings, only the Vedas are the real writings on the basis of which the Sanatan Dharma has flourished. So these type of thinking needs to be nullified, and we need to understand that there are major things which have been written in the Puranas which affiliate it with the Vedic principles as its elaborated form or in its extended format. So starting from the Sarga till the Ashray, the 10 actions of the supreme entity have been explained in the Puranas, and they could be understood as the minor categories of what 4 actions of the Brahman the supreme entity which have been explained in the Upanishads. So whenever a question comes in front of the Upanishad that what supreme entity is, how to identify the supreme entity, how to understand the form of that particular Brahman, at that time Upanishad tries to define it as yatova imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat prayanti abhisamvishanti tad vijigyasasva tad brahma. So there Upanishads explain that from whom this everything comes into the existence, the one who sustains everything, the one who assimilates everything in his eternal form, and the one who destroys everything at the end is the one who should be understood as the supreme entity, the Brahman. So there the four actions of the supreme entity have been explained, which are Utpatti, Sthiti, Prayan and Lay. So generally we understand that there are only three actions, which are to create something, to sustain something and to destroy something. But between the destruction and sustenance, there is one more aspect which has been considered by the Upanishads, which is the aspect of Prayan. So the Prayan stands for the function of Brahman, in which he provides liberation, mukti or salvation to the beings who have been sustained by him, who have been protected by him before the final destruction or the pralaya happens. So these four actions of Brahman have been explained in the Upanishads, and all these four functions have been elaborated in the form of 10 functions in the Mahapurana and in the form of 5 functions in the Purana. So it starts from Sarga, Visarga and Sthan. The Sarga term stands for creating. The Visarga term stands for a special sort of creation which will be created for maintaining the one which is created. So the Visarga and Sarga, these are the two types of creation which comes into the picture. The third one is Sthan. It means what sort of place will be provided to whatever that has been created by the Brahman out of him. The sentient and insentient, both the type of creation. So these three are considered within the aspect of Utpatti, within the aspect of creation. So these actions of Brahman, which have been explained as a one-liner explanation in the Upanishad, it has been elaborated by the Mahapuranas with distinguished 3 chapters in itself. So one whole chapter, it may be of many sub-chapters. For example, in the Bhagavata Mahapurana, the first chapter of the Sarga action, it goes with the 19 sub-chapters for just explaining the procedure of creation. So what you find in the Ved in one line, that same has been explained in the Puranas through 19 distinguished chapters, in which we can understand the procedure of creation in a very elaborated manner, which simplifies the whole procedure, which makes it more easy and lucid for understanding. Same way, the next actions of Poshan. Poshan means to sustain that has been created. Uti, it means to establish karma vasana. It means once all the sentient and insentient objects have been created, all the insentient objects, the living beings, the jivatmas, they will indulge in some or the other type of actions. So that action is known as karma vasana. It means there will be some sort of inspiration to get involved in some type of action. It may be good, it may be bad. So sat karma, it means to get involved in some good type of actions. Asat karma, it means some bad type of actions. So whatever sort of inspiration a being will be getting from his heart spontaneously for getting involved in some sort of action, that particular inspiration is explained as Uti. So it is a type of sustenance. It means the supreme entity himself will be inspiring each and every being for getting involved in some sort of action by establishing the karma vasana within the beings, as explained in Gita and Bhagavad both. The fifth one goes with the Manvantar Leela. It means that there is a timeline which has been created in which the distinguishing and classification of the time happens. The way we classify the whole cycle of time within hour and seconds and minutes and a year or century or decade, same way there is a different timeline as explained in the Shastras, in which the whole procedure of Dharma needs to be categorized. So that classification of time goes with the Manvantar, in which the procedure of sustaining the being within a particular time frame has been explained. Then it comes with the Ishanu Katha. It means now those people who have those individual beings or those Jivatmas who have identified the entity, the divine entity, the supreme entity, as their worshipped deity, for the sake of whom they involve in the action of Upasana. It may be through the Yajna, it may be through Tapasya, it can be through Dan, it can be through Gyan. So Upasana can be performed in multiple ways. It is not so that only the Shodashopachar Pujan is known as Upasana, but rather even Karma can become a procedure of Upasana, even Tapasya can become a mode of Upasana, even Dan can become a mode of Upasana, even Bhakti can become a mode of Upasana, even the internal knowledge regarding the supreme entity and the procedure of Dhyan in which we are meditating upon the eternal entity, even it becomes a procedure for Upasana. So all these multiple types of Upasana for the attainment of supreme entity, those have been elaborated within the aspect of Ishanukatha. Then comes the action of Nirodha, in which the Mahapuranas explain that those individual beings who are involved in such activities in which they would be fulfilling the need of Upasana, they become engrossed, their state of mind becomes engrossed in the worshipped deity, whomever they are worshipping, and that level, that status, that stand of engrossed state of mind is considered as Nirodha. Then comes the stage of salvation, in which the deity, as per the eligibility of the individual beings and the worshippers, provides them different types of fruits, different types of salvation, which is considered within the aspect of mukti. And then lastly, the consideration of ashray comes into the picture, in which the supreme entity considers each and every individual being as his ultimate refuge, not only the sentient beings but also the insentient objects, because ultimately when the final destruction happens, when the pralaya happens, everything remerges into the supreme entity, the Brahman, from which it has been created, which classified itself within the aspect of lay that has been explained in the Upanishad. So with the consideration of the 4 actions of Brahman that have been explained in the Upanishad, the Puranas elaborate each and every action within the 10 elaborated functions. So each and every chapter is meant for explaining one particular action of Brahman, and that is explained through the procedure of narratives. It means there will be a devotee as an example, there will be a narrative as an example, in which how he was provided salvation, what sort of action he performed for the attainment of salvation, or how he worshipped the deity through the procedure of Dan or Dhyan or Upasana or Karma in whatever ways. So in the format of Yajna, there will be one person who has attained the supreme entity through the path of Yajna. There will be another narrative in which a person has attained the supreme entity through the action of Dan itself. The one who has attained the entity through the procedure of Dhyan or through the tapasya or through the procedure of sannyas. So whatever the methods have been explained, we will be having one person who will be personifying that particular action, and the engagement of the deity or the supreme entity with that particular person will be narrated in the Puranas, through which readers like us or researchers like us or implementers like us would be able to understand that, okay, we need to fulfill the need of this particular action by following the path as followed by this particular devotee or by this particular person. So there will be up and downs within the path of that particular person. He will be going through many odds and events in the path of salvation. After the creation, many miscreations will come into the picture, and this is how the Purana will create a whole narrative through which we would be able to understand that how the Upanishadic principle of Utpatti, Sthiti, Prayan and Lay, all these 4 actions of the Brahman are implemented within the universe, within the creation in which we are living. So that implementation, the part that has been already implemented, it has been exemplified by the Puranas. So we cannot say that these are mere narratives which don't keep any essence in them. But the only problem is that the person who will not keep the Upanishad and Puran parallelly he would not be able to understand that how they both are interrelated, how they both are correlated with each other. So once we get into the principles of what the Veda have to say, what the Vedic principles have to say, only after that we would be able to understand that how the narratives contribute in explaining that same principle. So we can keep one person as an example, that okay, let us keep Padma Purana as an example, and let us see how one devotee has went through the procedure of sarga till the procedure of ashray, and how the involvement of the deity, how the engagement of the supreme entity happens with that particular person throughout his journey, which would provide one whole example in front of the world for fulfilling the need of dharma, artha, kama, moksha and bhakti purusharth. It means, for example, we take Ramayana as an example, that why Valmiki wrote Ramayana. The first thought in his mind was that I need to provide an ideal charitra of a human being, an ideal narrative of a human being, following whose path people would be able to understand the Dharma. So, for example, we read in the Smriti Shastras that how a king should behave, how a human should behave, how a father's duties are, what are the duties of a husband, what are the duties of a brother, what are the duties of a son, etc., etc. So all these principles have already been written in the Smriti Shastras, but till the date we don't see the narrative of the Ramayana. We are not able to see that how all these duties are fulfilled by one singular person by managing and by multiplying everything that is provided to him. So Bhagavan Sri Ram, being a son, he fulfilled his duty along with being a king also. But when the juncture came that when he had to choose between two duties, he kept one duty as the primary duty and another duty as the secondary duty. So all these type of narratives explain that how the procedure of dharma works, how the procedure of artha purusharth works, how the procedure of kama purusharth works. So when Bhagavan Sri Ram was asked that why he accepted the exile for 14 years, in spite of that being injustice towards him. So he said that that is not my consideration. It was between my mother and father, but my duty as a son was to fulfill the words of my father. So your two dharmic ordinances are coming in front of each other. They both are parallelly fulfilled dharmic principles, which are fulfilled by one singular person, but still we need to understand that there is something primary and there is something secondary. So all these understanding, all this type of understanding comes into the mind of a person only when these narratives are provided as the personified format of the principles. So when these narratives are in front of us, we are able to consider. So for example, whenever we see in our day-to-day life that whenever is a person in such a confusing situation, in that confusing situation, he doesn't remember what Smriti Shastra have to say, but he remembers what Bhagavan Sri Ram did when he was in this type of situation, or what Pandavas did when they were in this type of situation, or what Prahlad did when he was in this sort of situation, or what Bhagavan Sri Krishna did or Arjun did when they were in this sort of situation. So, for example, the same dilemma within the two duties is coming in the mind of Arjun as well when he is standing in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So, during that period, he had the dilemma that as a son, as a brother, I have some duties to fulfill, and those duties tell me that I should not fight with my family members. And on the other end, I have a duty as a king who needs to protect his kingdom that has been rightfully provided to him but was snatched by doing some sort of injustice. So within that dilemma, that is known as the dilemma. It was Dharma Sankata. It means two type of dharmic ordinances are coming in front of each other that are supposed to be parallelly fulfilled by one singular person, but there he needs to choose that what is his primary duty and what is his secondary duty. So during all these type of dilemmas, we don't get clear ordinances from the Shastras, but rather we get distinguished orders that this is the duty of a king and this is the duty of a brother, or this is the duty of a son, or this is the duty of a shishya. But we don't understand that what during the period of dilemma, what should be our dharma. And there comes the role of the Purana or the Itihasa Shastras, which explain us that consider what Arjun did. He kept his duty as the king primary and all the other duties are secondary for protecting the dharma. Same way, what Krishna did, what Ram did, what Pandavas did. So same way, these narratives help a person in fulfilling the need of all the four Purusharthas whenever we are in such a condition of a Dharma Sankata or dilemma within the two type of Dharmic ordinances. So these are the Puran, the role of Puran and the Itihas, in which the format of all the five Purusharth have been elaborated, and the Bhakti Purusharth additionally has been elaborated through these Puranic texts. Thirdly, the thing which we discussed earlier, that the philosophical formats are there through which the Puranic philosophy becomes easy for us and the Upanishadic philosophy becomes lucid while we are trying to understand it through the eye of the Puranas. And considering that contribution of the Puran have been explained as the fifth Veda, Panchama Veda. So there are the writings from the Chandogya Upanishad in which they say that Itihas and Puran should be considered as the Panchama Veda, because the term Puran comes from Puratanam iti Puranam, the one which is older, the one which is earlier is understood as the Puran. So considering that particular notion, when the Vedas itself are establishing Puran as the fifth Ved, we need to understand that they are not mythological texts. They don't consider the narratives which are for entertaining people, but rather they are meant for explaining the role of Purusharthas in day-to-day life for a lay person like us who have read the Dharmic ordinances, but they are not able to understand the implementation part of those written narratives. Second thing is that even for fulfilling the need of Kama Purusharth, even for fulfilling the need of entertainment, the way we see in the Natya Shastra of Bharat Muni, Bharat clearly writes it that whenever a poem is written, whenever a drama is written, whenever a novel is written, it should be based upon the Puranic and Itihasic narratives. It means no such drama can be performed on the stage which is not based upon any Puran or Itihasic narrative, but rather is just a fictional creation. We have just forgotten all those traditions. We have just missed out with what the Natya Shastras have to say. But the thing is that even while having entertainment, the dramas which were written for entertaining people, which are performed for entertaining people, even they were filled with all these narratives, because we knew that Kama Purusharth should not be distinguished from the Dharma Purusharth. So Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha and Bhakti, all the five Purusharthas are associated with each other, and the bondage between all the five Purusharthas cannot be broken. So Natya Shastra in Bharat Muni in Natya Shastra clearly explains that no such drama can be written which is not based upon the Puranic or Itihasic narrative. So it clearly means that even if it is meant for the entertainment, even if we are performing a drama which is written in the Puranic narrative on the stage for merely entertaining people, still it should be filled with the Dharmic principle. It should teach Dharma to the people. It should teach Artha Purushartha to the people the way it has been explained in the Shastras. So Puran fill the gaps in the Vedic narratives. Whatever that is missing, it means when we are not able to understand that what does Ved mean here, how this Dharma needs to be implemented in our day-to-day life, how this particular Dharma should be implemented. In that case, Puran comes to the help. And that's why the Vedas say that if a person without reading the Puranas is directly reading me, then it will massacre me. It means that person would not ever be able to understand what the principle of the Ved ultimately has to teach. So the Puranas fill the gaps within the Vedic principles, and that's why the person who is not able to understand the Puranas would never be able to understand what the Vedic principles are. So it is more like fun and learn thing. It means you are just reading the storylines, you are reading the narratives of the people. They are historically proven. So all those narratives helps us in understanding the Vedic narratives and the Vedic principles in a better way. All these Itihas and Puranas now on the basis of what the narratives go with. The most major problem, again, the way mythological texts have been titled, same way the fight between polytheism and monotheism also goes with the Western narratives. It means they say that you have Bahudevavad. It means you have accepted the theory of polytheism. You are not monotheistic. Hindus are polytheistic. It means we have many devatas. We are not promoting the theory of non-dualism, but rather we are promoting the theory of dualism. But we understand that the Veda says ekam sadvipra bahuda vadanti. One same entity, one same person, one same Brahman is explained and has been termed and coined and explained and propagated in various forms. The way a person is trying to personify the deity, in all those thoughts, the non-dualistic format of the Brahman becomes personifies. He personifies for the sake of the people who are trying to understand his form. And then many forms of the Devatas comes into the picture, which is classified within the structure of Visarga, which is the second element of the Purana. So this fight between polytheism and monotheism keeps on going among the researchers and the people, in which the Sanatan tradition, the Hindu tradition, is considered as the polytheistic tradition. But we should know that we have most schools of non-dualistic philosophical theories within the Sanatan tradition, right from Shankaracharya till all the modern acharyas. There are most of the people have accepted the theory of non-dualism. So there is no point of considering that we are we are being polytheistic and not monotheistic. So the thing is that being a monotheistic, we consider that Brahman is one and the same. There is no other entity. Ekam sadvipra bahuda vadanti. There is only one entity. Ekameva dvitiyam. There is no dvitiya term. There is only one. Ekameva, and one who is the Advitiya. So that Advitiya entity, the Brahman, is only one, and that same entity becomes many. That one becomes many for the sake of his devotees, for the sake of his worshippers, who are trying to understand his form, who are trying to worship him the way they are able to personify him. And for fulfilling the desires of the devotees, that one Brahman personifies in many forms. So we are not polytheistic, we are monotheistic. We have only one Brahman, only one entity. But that Brahman personifies within many forms, and all those forms are equivalently worshipped by all the devotees, whoever are able to consider the philosophy of non-dualism by keeping that knowledge, that Gyan aspect of non-dualism in their mind, but by worshipping one particular form as the personification of that Ekameva Advitiya Tattva. So with that consideration, the 5 schools of Upasana tradition came into the picture, which are Vaishnava, the one who worship Vishnu and his forms; Shaiva, those who worship Shiv and his multiple forms; the Shakta tradition, in which they worship the Shakti form; the Surya is worshipped, and the Ganapati, through which the Ganapati tradition came into existence. So the Puranas, the 18 Puranas, are again divided into these 5 categories and major 3 categories: Vaishnava, Shaiva, and Shakta schools, for distinguishing the narratives of each and every Puran. So the person who would be appealing, who would find Vishnu to be appealing, that person would be going through the Vaishnava Puranas, would be able to understand Vishnu as the Brahman, as the Parabrahman, and would be able to understand all the 10 actions, right from Sarga till the Ashray Leela, which are being performed by Vishnu, who is the form of Brahman, the supreme entity, the Ekameva Advitiya Tattva. Same way, the one who is the worshipper of Shiva, he would be going through the Shaiva Puranas, the Linga Puran, the Shiv Mahapuran, likewise, Markandeya Puran, etc. And that person would be able to understand the whole narrative of Utpatti, Sthiti, Prayan, and Lay, elaborated through the 10 formats of Puran, or the 5 structures, the 5 elements of Puran, through which he would be able to understand that Brahman, being Shiva, in the form of a Shiva, he is performing all these actions for the sake of his devotees. So in that fashion, all the 4 aspects of the Upanishad, Utpatti, Sthiti, Prayan, and Lay, they will be fulfilled in the format of Puranic narrative, for the sake of Vishnu, for the sake of Shiv, for the sake of Shakti, for the Surya, and for Ganpati, which merge together as a non-dualistic theory. They become one, Ekameva Advitiya Brahman. So the one who is reading that particular narrative, for understanding the form of the deity, for understanding the form of that particular Devata as Parabrahma, he would be able to understand that how all these actions are performed by Shiv, the personification of Brahman, or as performed by Vishnu, the personification of Brahman, or as performed by Shakti, the personified form of Brahman itself. So likewise, this structure of Puran comes into the picture, and that's how we would be able to understand that how the narrative of all the 18 Puran go with all these 5 schools of Upasana, in which each and every deity, each and every devata is primarily focused. It means the way the Western narratives try to make us fight among us by saying that, okay, one Puran will be saying that Shiva is the superior, another Puran will be saying that Vishnu is the superior. Third Puran will come into the picture which will say that Shakti is superior. But there is no sort of contradiction within all these 3 narratives in which Shiva, Shakti or Vishnu are explained as being superior, but rather all these 3 are explained as the personification of one same particular Brahman who is Ekameva and Advitiya. So there is no point of being any Dvitiya entity coming into the picture. So when there is only one entity, one Ekameva Advitiya Tattva, in that case, whoever is being explained as the superior entity in that particular Puran, that entity will be the personified form of the Brahman only, which has been explained in the Upanishad, which has been explained through the format of Yagya in the Purvakanda of Ved, for whom the Smritis are trying to create a boundary of Dharma for how we would be able to fulfill the need of Purushartha for the attainment of Pancham Purushartha, which is Bhakti, which would ultimately provide us, which would provide us the fruit of attainment of the ultimate reality. So there is no point of considering any sort of monotheistic or polytheistic theory coming into the picture. There is no point of finding contradiction within the superiority of the different deities, but rather all the deities equivalently being Brahman, they are explained as the personified form. But now it depends upon the person whose incentive or whose nature is appealing, that which devata you are liking, which particular form you are able to like, which particular form you are able to love. So based upon that sattvic, rajas and tamas pravritti of the person, the way the gunas will function, the way that person will be inspired to understand the form of the ultimate reality, they would be able to consider one particular devata as the worshipped devata, in which in their personified form they would be worshipping the ultimate reality, the supreme Brahman. And for understanding the action of the supreme Brahman, the 4 actions of the Upanishad will be elaborated in the form of Puranic narrative through the elaborated 10 actions from Sarga till Ashraya. So for understanding that, as I previously said, that we will consider Bhagavat as the model. So all the 15 classes will go like that. First 5 classes will go with the overall structure of the Puran, how all the 18 Puranas have been narrated, what is in brief, consideration of the Puranic principle, how the Puranas have been written, what is the structure of the Puran, how to affiliate Vedic principles with the Puranic narratives, and ultimately the 10 classes will go with explaining each element of the Puran starting from Sarga till Ashraya Leela through each class. So from the 6th class till the 15th class, each and every class will be dedicated for explaining one form, one element of the Puran, in which we will be primarily considering Bhagavat as the Bhagavatiya narrative as an example, and in brief all the other 17 Puran and their 5 and 10 elements will be kept in the consideration. And ultimately that will make us understand that how the principles of the Puranas, how the narratives of Puranas are helping us in implementing the format of Purusharthas in our day-to-day life, and how the Puranas have opened the gates for eligibility for each and every one. It means whenever we consider who is eligible for the Puranic Dharma, Purana will say everyone is eligible for the Puranic Dharma. So the gates which have been closed by the Ved and Smriti Shastras in some or the other way for maintaining the sanctity of the Dharmic ordinances, those gates were opened by the Puranas, in which each and every person is considered to be eligible also for reading, understanding, listening, and for implementing. So this is how the course will go, and it will be an interactive course. So we would be able to interact. All the questions will be welcomed from my end, and I'll try to share the knowledge which I have to the best of my capacity in accordance with how Puranas have revealed and have simplified the Vedic principles for us, have elucidated the same, and how the Western people tried to kill that hardcore element of our Shastric tradition, which kept us, which ultimately resulted in keeping us away from the Dharmic scriptures and implementing the same in our day-to-day life. So once you consider Puran as the mythology, there is that the Devtas doesn't mean anything. Even they are considered to be myths. Even the tradition of worshipping the Devtas become a mere myth. It doesn't keep any essence at all. All the temples and the temple traditions becomes a myth. The whole narrative of the Puranas is considered to be not historically simplified or historically authentic narrative, and that's how it becomes a mere fairy tale. But rather, if we try to keep all the Shastras parallel with what the Puranic principles have to say, in that case, we would be able to see that how, in a very detailed and brief manner, in a very simplified manner, like a fun and learn tradition, how the Puranas have explained the format of Vedic principles, and that Anushthan of the Dharma, that implementation of the Dharma has been made easy by the Puranas, which was very difficult in its pure Vedic format. That's what this course will have to give, and those who have registered, they are welcome to discuss everything that will be discussed during the course. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maitri ji. This whole session was so rewarding and not just informative, but so educational. I'm so grateful to you for making it more than just an overview. And throughout your presentation, we had queries and comments which kept coming, and I addressed few of those. I again, before we take other questions, I invite all of you who are present here right now to do enroll into this course, because I guess we have just got an idea of what it will include. And those who will watch this recording later, we invite you to enroll as well. The enrollment link with the recording of this webinar will be sent to everyone who registered for this course, whether or not they could join us live today or not. So that will be made available. Since some folks asked us, yes, after every live session, when the course begins from the 3rd of September, every Tuesday from 6 to 7, the recording of the session will be made available on our learning portal, and any other learning resources that are shared by the faculty will also be uploaded on the portal, and you can access it for at least a year. So, if because of time zone issues or due to professional commitments or other commitments, you're unable to sometimes attend a live session, you will still get to benefit from the live course because you will have access to the recording. So, with that being said, let us look at what the Q&A has. I think Yogin Joshi ji had a remark. This is pertaining to the slide on the course syllabus. Maitri ji, in your course syllabus slide, the point number 6 was in-depth interrogation of Bhagavad Purana as the crust of Vedic principles. Yogin Joshi ji's comment was, did you mean crust or crux? I mean,
Yes,
I didn't.
it was crux.
Yeah.
It was typing.
So this has been answered. Okay. Then Ramesh Avariji says, do you have earlier sessions? Yes, all the webinar sessions that we have had so far, Ramesh ji, we have put it all on Indic Academy's YouTube channel. We've actually curated a special playlist. So what I'll do, I'll share that link also in the chat box here so that you can benefit from those too. Yes, all of this is placed at one place, Ramesh ji. So I hope that has been answered. Charu Uppal ji, thank you so very much for joining us. Maitri ji, Charu Uppal ji is one of our earlier faculty members. She's joined us from Sweden. So, she has been recommending your course far and wide. So thank you, Charu ji, for making it. And yes, you've appreciated, of course. Pratibha ji has a question, Maitri ji. She's obviously complimented you. Then she has a question. Would you like to have a look at it?
Yeah. Are the Aharya Puja prevalent today diluted? Can original rituals be revived? Yes, those can be revived, but it depends upon the eligibility criteria of that particular person. So it would be more like contextually prevailing and contextually not prevailing.
Okay. So Pratibhaji's question, thanks for the lecture, Dr. Okay. Is there something else that any one of you, we are already at the 6 p.m. mark. So just in case you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at reachout@indica.courses. Alternately, when we send you the webinar recording, if while perusing the recording, you have any questions, you can mail us at reachout@indica.courses and we'll make sure that we get back to you. We really, really hope that you attend the course and benefit from it. And for some students, who are unable to avail, who are unable to actually put in the entire course fee due to certain issues, we understand that. Please feel free to mail us at the same email ID, reachout@indica.courses, and we definitely have scholarships and grants for those who need it. And we have other schemes also happening from time to time, because essentially these offerings for us are like in the service of the divine, as Maitri ji made it abundantly clear in the beginning that we approach her to teach this course because we also want to take Puranas beyond the whole Western narrative of these being myths. And we're so grateful to Maitri ji that she actually accepted the idea. And today we are here and we've really, really greatly enriched from her patronage from time to time. She's taught so many courses also in the past. So I do think that the kind of efforts that she's put into creating this course, you will definitely benefit from it. Kapila ji's appreciated it. It's great, great, wonderful. Thank you so much for all your comments. Thank you for your questions. Once again, since we are at 6 p.m. mark, I think we will close the session today. But do feel free to mail us. It's reachout@indica.courses. And we had... Ramesh ji, if you could just drop us a mail, we will share the any other specific link also you have in mind. We will send it to you. But for now, let me see if... So I will also put the entire playlist, as I just promised, into the chat box so that anyone who wishes to, you can actually peruse all of these. In fact, this particular recording will be mailed to you, and it will also be made available as a part of this playlist too. So you can go through all of these. Thank you so much, Maitri ji, for taking out time for this webinar, and of course for agreeing to teach the course that begins from the 3rd September. Thank you so very much to the 300 plus people who registered for this webinar. We hope to see you in the class as well. The recordings will be shared with you. Reach out to us for any queries and definitely go through our course catalog on INDICA.courses, because we have wonderful courses currently going on, which you can still enroll in. And there are quite a few courses that we have recently announced in addition to the one that Maitri ji is teaching. So thank you so very much, everyone. And we hope to meet you in another webinar soon, and also in the course of Puranas, Vedic Principles Unveiled. Thank you so much. Namaste. Have a beautiful, beautiful weekend ahead.